Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Kevin Franke's lawyer is definitely making his rounds with the media, so we're going to go over his most recent interviews. He has done several with Law and Crime, but they like to break them up in shorter segments, so we're going to cover those. But first up, we have his lawyer responding to Ruby's sisters' YouTube videos. Last week, Ruby's sisters, Jodi and Bonnie, posted YouTube videos stating they were unaware of their sister's behavior because she had cut contact with her family. They also called out Kevin for his responsibility in not protecting his children.
One person that could have done something within his legal right was Kevin. We had zero contact with him. It was Kevin's job to check in on things, and he did not.
Now, his lawyer did an interview with Today, so this information comes to us from this article. Ruby Franke's husband, Kevin, won't point fingers following child abuse charges, lawyer says. The estranged husband of Ruby Franke refuses to, quote, sling mud and point fingers, end quote, following accusations that he could have saved his children, says his attorney. Kevin did not want to be separated, says Kester. He wanted to work through concerns as a family. There was never any formal written decree of separate maintenance or separation agreement. The separation was under terms prescribed by Ruby and Jodi Hilderbrandt. Kester addressed Bonnie's claims about Kevin. I think she admits that she too was out of the loop and had not had any contact with the children herself. However, Kevin is more interested in reaching out to his children, family, and friends to heal the past trauma and events. Kester tells Today.com Kevin is making an effort to rebuild and bridge these relationships rather than sling mud and point fingers. He is focused on doing what is best for his kids at this point, even if that means undergoing some introspection. None of that process, however, is going to be creating more distance between him and his family, including his extended family. He wishes Bonnie and her family well as we all travel down this path of healing. Now, his lawyer also recently did another interview with Law and Crime where he maintains that Kevin had no idea what was going on and he thought he was following the advice of a professional mental health expert telling him to stay away from his family and that the only way to reconcile with his family was to stay apart from them. His lawyer said that Ruby was telling him that everything was wonderful and blissful and that she also did not tell him she was taking the kids to southern Utah to be in Jodi's home because Kevin would have resisted that. Then he goes on to say that Jodi was actually Kevin's therapist while him and Ruby were separated.
Facilitated by Jodi, and during those groups, he was being downgraded and diminished, and told how bad he was, and that he needed to repent, and that the best way to repent was to not infect his family with his problems, and so that's why you need to stay away. He wasn't the only one in those men's groups that was undergoing exactly what he was undergoing at her suggestion and recommendation. Zoom meetings. I don't think they ever met together personally, even though maybe a sponsor of someone would meet personally, but sporadically.
So because Kevin was doing this therapy with Jodi, he was under the impression that he was working towards reconciliation within his marriage. They then talked about the previous custody hearings where Ruby made the allegations, and then how Kevin wants to have the future custody hearings sealed.
That it serves his kids' best interest to give them as little of publicity as possible. I think it was very damaging the last time when the reporter snuck into the courtroom and then divulged very, very confidential and information that Mrs. Franke stated about one of their children. And I just think that was damaging to everyone. It was especially damaging to the child. So I think that's the kind of thing the court's trying to prevent. I shouldn't comment about that. I shouldn't comment about my client's belief about that.
Now, we know when the arrest occurred that Ruby reached out to Kevin, either text message or calling, and told him he needed to get down there and that it was an emergency. Now, because there was an ongoing investigation, Kevin was denied access to his children, and the 4 youngest children were placed into DCFS custody. When asked where the children were, his lawyer responded by saying they were most likely in a temporary foster situation and that Kevin has not had contact with any of his younger children. To our knowledge, Kevin has not yet filed for divorce, but according to his attorney, he has not spoken to Ruby in 2 weeks. In Kevin's lawyer's opinion, the entire Franke family was brainwashed by Jodi Hilderbrandt and her Connexions teachings. We know this brainwashing is definitely possible just from the victims who are speaking out against Jodi. And in my opinion, I think his lawyer is definitely going to use that to their advantage. But remember that Ruby and Jodi's criminal case was postponed due to copious amounts of evidence they needed to go through. And remember, Shari Franke asked the public to send her links of 8 passengers and Connexions videos that had questionable behavior. So it's a huge possibility that they're having to sift through all of these videos, and they will be using those. And we know Kevin's right by Ruby's side in some of those videos when she's doing her most questionable parenting. I really wish the interviewers would ask Kevin's lawyer about all the previous times where law enforcement was at the Franke home while he was still living there. I'm working on a much longer timeline video, but we know that the Springville police visited the Franke's home 15 times between 2019 and 2023. And during one of those calls, it was Shari Franke who reached out to law enforcement. And we know that Kevin was refusing to speak to her. So I'm sure at some point she was trying to tell her dad what was going on, but he wouldn't listen. So this is definitely going to be interesting of how this all plays out. Are they going to try to pin everything on Jodi, and will Kevin get custody? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please do me a huge favor and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more updates.